All right, let's dive right in to something I know a lot of you are interested in, which is finding the best deals on airline tickets. You guys send in quite a mix of articles, travel tips, and even some data analysis, which we're going to unpack today. So basically, our mission is to extract that golden advice that'll help you guys book those trips without spending a fortune.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see just how much information is out there, but it's cool to see how a lot of these sources, while offering various tips and tricks, they all kind of converge on a few key principles for finding those truly cheap flights.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. What is the first thing that just pops out at you from all this material?
Well, I'd have to say one theme that kind of consistently comes up is the importance of timing. It's not just about booking in advance, although that's definitely a factor, but it's more about understanding the nuances of when to book to get the best savings.
Right, so it's not as easy as just snagging that early bird deal.
Exactly, and for example, a lot of these sources indicate that for transatlantic flights, the sweet spot seems to be around the 7-week mark. Booking then consistently yields the lowest prices, probably because airlines release that initial batch of tickets at lower prices to kind of stimulate demand.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm guessing it gets more complex when you think about peak seasons versus off-peak travel.
For sure. For popular times like holidays and spring break, that advanced booking window becomes even more crucial. You've got articles here mentioning starting your search as early as 4 months out for peak periods. But if you're going for a less popular spot or traveling during the off-season, you might have a bit more flexibility there.
So there's still a chance for spontaneity, that's good to know. But let's say we are thinking about, a trip during a busy time. Are there specific days or even times of day when booking might give us an edge?
Several sources suggest that Tuesdays and Wednesdays are often the cheapest days to fly, and as for the time of day, there's this persistent myth about that midnight or early morning magic. Now, while this might not always be true, it is interesting to see it pop up in a bunch of these articles. It's definitely something worth trying out, especially if you're feeling adventurous.
Yeah, I've also heard that before. I always kind of wondered if that was just a made-up thing.
Yeah.
But I do love the idea of a late-night flight deal hunt, But moving on to something that is actually data-driven, Skyscanner's price trend tool. This looks like a real game changer for people who love to plan ahead and be strategic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Skyscanner has this fantastic feature that lets you analyze historical price data for whatever route you're thinking about. You can actually see how those prices have fluctuated over the past year and get a feel for when those dips and peaks happen. And this is super valuable in helping you pinpoint that perfect booking window for your specific trip.
So instead of just going with the general advice, we can kind of tailor it based on actual data trends. That's awesome. But what about the next step? Choosing where to actually book. There's this constant debate about booking directly through the airline versus using one of those aggregator sites, like a Skyscanner or a Trip.com. What are your thoughts on that?
It's really interesting because the sources you've provided offer such a mix of perspectives on this. Some really emphasize the pluses of booking through the airline, citing better customer service and maybe a bit more flexibility if things go wrong. But then you've got the aggregators like Skyscanner and Trip.com offering the convenience of comparing multiple airlines all at once, right? Which can save you a lot of time, and you might even find better deals that way.
So it's all about weighing those pros and cons. What about all those airline loyalty programs? Are they really worth signing up for? Or are they just a way for airlines to clog up our inbox with all those promotional emails?
The age-old loyalty program question. While those newsletters can definitely get overwhelming, it's important to remember that they often have special discounts and early access to the special sales, right? And let's not forget, the potential to earn miles that can be redeemed for free flights, upgrades, or other perks.
Okay, so maybe those emails aren't all bad. What about the everywhere search feature on Skyscanner that you keep mentioning in your notes? That seems like it could be super useful for people who are, flexible with their travel plans.
Oh, for sure. The everywhere search is awesome for adventurous travelers who aren't necessarily tied to a specific destination, You just put in your departure city and travel dates, and Skyscanner will show you a map with all the cheapest places you can fly to during that time. It's perfect for sparking some travel inspiration, and you might even find some cool hidden gems you've never even heard of.
That's amazing. It takes away all the pressure of having to choose where you want to go first.
Right.
But let's be honest, once we actually have a destination and dates in mind, it's easy to fall into that trap of constantly checking prices. Is there a way to stop that and just relax and wait?
Well, a lot of these articles recommend using price alerts. So instead of, constantly refreshing those pages looking for price drops, you can set up an alert on Skyscanner or Trip.com for your specific route and dates. They'll then send you a notification when the price changes, so you can jump on a deal without all that stress of manual monitoring.
So it's kind of like having a personal assistant just for flight deals. That's cool. What about this whole thing I keep seeing about using incognito mode to find cheaper flights? Is there any actual truth to that, or is that just like another one of those internet myths?
That's a good one. While it might not be foolproof, there is some logic behind it. Websites often, keep track of your browsing history and might adjust prices based on what you're clicking on. So clearing your cookies or using incognito mode can sometimes let you see that base price without any of that personalized markup stuff. It's worth trying, especially if you're, feeling like a bit of a tech wizard.
Okay, so we've talked about timing, airlines, websites, even a bit of internet magic. What other strategies should we be thinking about when we're trying to find cheap flights?
Well, I think we should move beyond the traditional stuff and explore some of these more creative tactics highlighted in the sources you sent over, like breaking up those round trips and looking into those alternative airports.
Okay, I like where this is going. Give me the details on these more unconventional approaches.
So welcome back to our deep dive into finding those cheap flights.
Okay, I am ready to get back to those creative tactics you mentioned, like breaking up round trips, for example. What are the advantages and disadvantages of doing that?
It's an interesting strategy because it challenges this idea that round trips are always the cheapest, right? And the sources actually say that's not always the case. Sometimes piecing together, your trip with separate one-way tickets, especially if you're using budget airlines, can save you a lot of money.
So we're basically turning the layover into a feature and not a bug, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's say you want to fly from Chicago to London, for example. Instead of just booking, a round trip, you could book a one-way from Chicago to Dublin, spend a couple of days in Ireland, then fly from Dublin to London on a separate ticket. You might be surprised at how much you save, and you get to see, another place.
Yeah, it's like a 2-for-1. I can already picture myself walking those cobblestone streets in Dublin. Okay, so what about alternative airports? Tell me about that strategy.
So this is about looking beyond those major hubs, right? Instead of just automatically flying into, the big ones, consider those smaller airports that are near your destination. Smaller airports usually have lower landing fees, which can sometimes mean cheaper fares for us, the passengers. And plus, you might stumble upon some cool places you never even thought of.
Okay, that's interesting. Can you give me a couple of specific examples?
Yeah, of course. Instead of flying directly into San Francisco, you could look into Oakland or San Jose. Those airports are often less crowded and have more budget-friendly options. Or if you're going to Florida, flying into Fort Lauderdale instead of Miami might save you quite a bit.
Okay, so it's about being open to possibilities outside of those big well-known names. I'm liking this approach. What else is in these sources that kind of challenges the traditional ways of thinking about booking?
Well, there's a lot of talk about travel agents these days. While online booking, has been huge for years, it seems like travel agents are making a bit of a comeback. And a lot of these articles say that they can be a really valuable resource, especially if you're looking for those complex trips or those package deals.
Yeah, that's surprising, I thought. I thought travel agents were a thing of the past. So what's the advantage of using them in today's world?
Well, they often have access to special fares and discounts you won't find just browsing online. And they can really take the stress out of planning, especially for multi-destination trips. You just tell them, what you're looking for, and they do all the hard work, comparing different options, giving you personalized recommendations.
It sounds like it could be a great option for, people who just want that personal touch and that expertise. I'll be honest, the convenience of booking online, it also sometimes comes with too many choices. It can be overwhelming, looking through endless options. But speaking of being overwhelmed, let's talk about those basic economy fares. Are they truly worth it, or are we just being tricked by what seems like a good deal?
Basic economy is a really interesting example of how airlines have adapted to how people travel these days. At first glance, they seem super cheap, right? But a lot of your sources point out that there's often a whole bunch of restrictions and hidden costs that go along with those fares.
Okay, tell me more about those hidden catches.
Well, with basic economy, you're basically getting like the no frills experience, right? You might not be able to choose your seat. You might have to pay extra for carry-on luggage. And changes or cancellations can be like really expensive or even impossible. It's kind of like a gamble, you know? It could work out if you're traveling light and you're absolutely sure about your plans, but it could also like backfire if something unexpected comes up.
So it's all about carefully thinking about, the potential risks and benefits. It makes sense why so many of these articles are saying how important it is to like read that fine print. But let's move on to something more positive, like those deals you sometimes see in, airline newsletters and through loyalty programs. What are your best tips for like making the most of those?
Well, your sources really emphasize how important it is to like actually engage with those programs. Make sure you're signed up for newsletters from the airlines you fly with the most. Actually read those emails, even though it can be tempting to just send them straight to spam. They often have like exclusive discounts, early bird alerts, and other deals that can really help you save money.
Okay, so it's about being in the loop and like acting quickly when you see a good offer. What about those credit card rewards we talked about earlier? How can we really use those to our advantage?
Credit card rewards. They're like, a secret weapon for smart travelers. Many travel credit cards have these amazing sign-up bonuses, like enough miles for a free round-trip flight just for opening an account. And then, they have ongoing rewards for like your everyday spending. You can literally earn your next vacation just by using your card for things you'd be buying anyway, like groceries, gas, online shopping.
Whoa, that's awesome. So we can like turn our everyday spending into travel opportunities. Are there like any specific cards mentioned in the articles that, are particularly good?
Yeah, a few of them highlight airline-specific cards. They often give you discounts, priority boarding, and other perks that are like specific to that airline. So if you usually fly with, one particular airline, those cards can be a real game changer.
Okay, so we found the perfect flight. We've got our credit card strategy figured out. Now, what about the booking process itself? Any advice on how to deal with those, like, sometimes tricky online platforms?
Booking flights online can feel like, going through a maze.
Totally.
But your sources offer some good tips on how to come out on top. First things first, always double check your itinerary before clicking that confirm button. Make sure the dates, times, and all the passenger info is correct.
Yeah, that seems obvious, but I have to admit, I've definitely made that mistake before.
It happens to all of us, but those little mistakes can cause, big problems later on. Another important thing is to really pay attention to, like, the breakdown of the costs. Airlines are really good at adding all those extra fees, like for baggage, seat selection, and other things.
Oh, I've definitely been like caught by those sneaky fees before. It's like they pop up out of nowhere right when you think you found a great deal.
Exactly. They don't always make it easy to see all the costs up front. So, take your time, read all the details, and consider any potential extra costs before you actually book.
Okay, so being careful and paying attention is key. What about those annoying technical difficulties that seem to, like, always happen on booking sites? Do you have any tips for handling those?
Yeah, technology can be frustrating sometimes. But if you run into an error message or you're having trouble, like, finishing your booking, try not to panic. First, try clearing your browser's cache and cookies, or maybe switching to a different browser. And if that doesn't work, don't hesitate to, like, call the airline or the booking site directly. Their customer service people can often help you figure things out.
Okay, so being persistent and knowing a little bit about tech can really pay off.
Absolutely. And remember, you're not the only one dealing with this. Millions of people book flights online every day. So if you're having trouble, chances are someone else has had the same problem and figured out how to solve it. Don't be afraid to, ask for help.
That's good advice. It's easy to feel lost sometimes when you're, dealing with all this stuff online. Okay, so we've covered a ton of stuff in this deep dive, like timing, airlines, websites, booking tips, even credit card rewards. Is there, like, one piece of advice that you think people often forget when they're trying to find those cheap flights?
I would have to say flexibility is the most important thing, and a lot of these sources agree. Being open to different dates, different destinations, even different airports can make a huge difference. It can really open up a world of possibilities and lead to some amazing deals.
So it's about, like, embracing the unexpected and being open to going off the beaten path a little bit.
Exactly. If you're too set in your ways, you might miss out on those unexpected moments that make traveling so great.
Yeah. I love that. It's about more than just getting from point A to point B, right? It's about the journey and being open to new experiences.
Exactly. And sometimes those detours, those unplanned things, those are the things that lead to the most memorable adventures.
This has been super insightful. I feel like I've learned so much about how to find cheap flights. But don't go anywhere yet. We've got one more part of this deep dive to go. All right, welcome back to our final part of our deep dive into cheap flights. We've talked about a ton of stuff already, from timing to credit card rewards, but I have a feeling we've saved some of the best tips for last.
Yeah, we've definitely explored the importance of being flexible and thinking outside the box, right? Now let's get into some really unconventional strategies that can save you a lot of money.
Okay, I'm ready to unlock those secret flight deal hacks. What do you have for me?
All right, let's start with with something that might sound a little too good to be true. It's called mistake fares. These are basically pricing errors that airlines make sometimes, which lead to ridiculously low prices, way cheaper than usual.
Wait, are you serious? You're telling me airlines accidentally give away flights for almost nothing? How does that even happen?
It's actually more common than you might think. These mistakes can happen for, various reasons, like maybe a currency conversion issue, a technical glitch, or even, just human error. And it's a great opportunity for savvy travelers who are ready to jump on it.
It's like a digital scavenger hunt for those amazing mistake fares. Where do we even start looking for these?
There are websites and social media groups that are dedicated to tracking these mistake fares. They scan the internet constantly, and they'll alert their followers, and they'll give you tips on, how to actually book those deals before they disappear. It takes, a bit of effort, and you got to be ready to act fast, but the rewards can be incredible.
It sounds kind of exciting, I have to admit. I'm always up for a challenge, especially if it means saving a bunch of money on flights. But are there any risks, with booking these mistake fares?
Yeah, you do need to be aware that airlines can cancel those mistake fares at any time. So there's always a chance, that your trip might get disrupted. So if you do decide to book one of those mistake fares, it's a good idea to not make any non-refundable plans like hotels or anything until you have your actual tickets.
Yeah. Okay, so flexibility and caution are key when you're dealing with mistake fares. I'm going to remember that. What about those student discount sites or travel agencies that focus on certain types of travelers? Are they worth checking out, or are they only for a specific group of people?
They can be awesome, especially if you're, a student, a teacher, or a young traveler. Sites like Student Universe and SDA Travel have negotiated special fares that you won't find anywhere else. They often have exclusive deals and discounts that can make travel much more affordable for those groups.
That's great to know, especially for people who are traveling on a budget. It reminds you that it's good to look beyond those main booking sites. What about those websites where you can bid on flights? Are those worth trying, or are they more trouble than they're worth?
Bidding sites can be a good option for travelers who are flexible with their travel dates and, who are willing to take a bit of a risk. They basically work like an auction. You submit your bid for those unsold seats on flights. It's kind of a game, but if you're strategic about it, you might snag an amazing deal.
So it's about finding that balance between a reasonable bid and actually having a chance of winning. Any tips on how to use those bidding platforms effectively?
Yeah, research is super important. Take some time to understand the typical bid prices for the route you want and set, a budget for yourself. Don't get caught up in the excitement and end up overpaying for a flight you could have gotten cheaper somewhere else.
Good advice. Sometimes the simplest way is the best way, right? But sometimes it's fun to try something new and explore those less traditional options. We've talked about so much in this deep dive, from the power of timing to those crazy mistake fares. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are, about to start their own cheap flight search?
Yeah, I'd say embrace the journey, stay curious, and never stop exploring, The world of travel is always changing, so stay informed, question everything, and be open to new possibilities. Remember, the real joy of travel isn't just about getting to your destination. It's about those unexpected adventures you have along the way.
I love that. It's a good reminder that travel is about more than just, checking things off a list. It's about embracing the unknown, connecting with different cultures, and creating memories that will last a lifetime.
Exactly. And with, the right mindset and a willingness to step off that well-worn path, you can make those travel dreams a reality without, spending a fortune.
It has been an amazing journey through the world of cheap flights. I feel like we've uncovered a treasure trove of valuable tips and strategies. Huge thanks to our expert for sharing their insights and, helping us navigate this whole crazy world of travel.
It is my pleasure. And happy travels, everyone. May your flights be smooth, your journeys unforgettable, and your adventures filled with wonder.
谢谢收看，健康生活，关心您的生活健康，请订阅、点赞及转传。